This past weekend, I watched the Reagan movie, and honestly, I wasn't really prepared for how much it would open my eyes. I went into thinking I'm watching this movie anyway, so why not just do a review on it, explain some key moments, how well Dennis Quaid acted in it, just kind of break down the review, the film, discuss his impact, and really just what I learned. A nice reflection of Reagan. But then something really changed. When Monday rolled around, I was excited to share what I thought about the movie. I walked into school and mentioned it to a few friends, and what I heard in response really absolutely stunned me. One friend literally called this film Republican fan fiction, and I was honestly really surprised since he hadn't even watched the film or knew what it was even about. It was like just throwing around opinions without even knowing the context of what the film was even clearly about. But then it got worse. Over 10 people told me they didn't know who Ronald Reagan was. Let me say that again. Over 10 people in my generation, in Gen Z, from my school had no idea who Ronald Reagan was. Maybe you don't even know who he is. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. Ronald Reagan was the 40th president of the United States. He was a huge factor in communism, lowering taxes and inflation, and no one knows that. No one knows if he wasn't even a president at all. I didn't even think it could get worse until the next day I went to school. And before classes, I ran around kind of like Man on the Straight interviews, but I didn't film it. I asked 30 plus people who Ronald Reagan was. And honestly, like 7 people knew who he was. And the rest just said, or I don't know. And that's honestly infuriated me. And that's when I realized this film couldn't be just about a movie. There was something way bigger that we need to talk about. Welcome back to the Clayton Show. I'm diving deep into something that really has been on my mind. Why my generation, Gen Z, needs to wake up when it comes to politics. This isn't just about knowing history, it's about understanding the world around us and caring about things that shape us and shape our future. Because if we don't, we're going to be in a lot of trouble when we're older. And so when I walked in, I expected to have a few thoughtful conversations and discussions about the movie. Maybe we talk about Reagan's presidency, his policies, or even debate whether his actions are still relevant today. What I didn't expect was this level of cluelessness that I encountered. It was a wake-up call to me that from just my friends, but for me also. This isn't just about one movie. It's about the fact that so many people my age and sometimes even older don't even know basic history. It's a fact that as a next generation, we are completely checked out of the political conversations that are going to determine our future and our kids' future and so on. And so this made me ask, why? Why do we actually care? Why do we actually not care, actually? And why don't we know? So I want to talk about why Reagan matters. Because for those of you that don't know, and apparently there's a lot of you out there, Ronald Reagan was the most influential figures in modern history. He was instrumental in bringing the end of the Cold War, a conflict that shaped the second half of the 20th century, honestly. And Reagan's policy, particularly his tough stance against communism, which helped push the Soviet Union to the breaking point. His famous speech when he's at the Berlin Wall, he goes, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." That wasn't just a cool soundbite. It was literally a turning point in world history. A turning point in getting the wall taken down so that families could be next to each other and talk to each other and just not be in sheer and utter communism. But that's really not what I want to focus on. The real issue is that there's so many people that don't know any of this. And in my opinion, that's a huge problem. How are we supposed to make decisions about the future if we don't even know what's happening in the past? How are we going to vote for policies that affect our future when we don't even know the policies? We're voting on them because we like them. Because, oh, they seem cool. And it truly blows my mind that people can be so out of touch with the world around them. Are you kidding me? It goes deeper than just the ignorance of history. Last week, I literally heard someone say they'd vote for Kamala Harris just because she has some funny TikToks. Think about that really fast. We're talking about someone's potential vote for the next leader of the free world, and we're basing that on social media content? Why? I'm just utterly shocked that we have a potential vote because someone says they make really funny TikToks. Not policies, not leadership ability, not qualifications, just TikTok. This is our generation. This might be you. Don't be that guy, please. Just don't. So maybe you're asking, why should we care, Clayton? What's the point in caring about what could happen when we can't even vote yet? We need to care more about politics, about history, about what's going on in the world, because we're the next generation. We're going to be the ones voting in the next few years, and not just once, but every election moving forward. And if we're basing our decisions on things like TikTok and Instagram, we're in serious trouble. We need to be voting for policies and what we believe in, what sets right with you. Let's talk about for the real impact of political engagement, or I guess the lack of it. Right now, decisions are being made about the economy, foreign policies, education, healthcare, and things that are going to really impact our lives. Like we have an election coming up. This is one of the most important elections. And you can be on the left or the right, and you're going to believe this is the most important election. And if you think that what we're doing right now is great with how high inflation is, everything, there's something completely wrong with you. If you're voting on Kamala just based on the fact that she's black and that she's female, that's a DEI hire. That's not qualifications at all. And if we do not get informed and not start paying attention and letting other people decide our future for us, we're giving up our power. We're giving up our freedom to vote in a sense. We have the freedom of speech. We have the freedom of thought to choose what we want to choose, and we're just doing that based off of TikTok and social media, not off of what they can do. And here's what it is. Here's the thing, the danger of social media. Now, I know you're thinking, I see what's going on. I've seen it on Instagram. I see it all the time. I see the headlines on Twitter. That's part of the problem. You're part of the problem. Social media gives the illusion of being informed without actually informing us. We see the quick headline, which can actually be so misleading. Like I did a former episode 2 episodes ago or 3 episodes ago on the first Trump assassination attempt. You read those headlines and it's so misleading. I might be able to throw one up on CNN or something. Like, President Trump, noise startled him and he fell on the ground and he was bleeding. Really? You think you know what's going on because you've seen the funny TikTok, that headline. But do we really know what's going on? Do you catch yourself not even reading a headline, not even caring? But why don't you care? Most of the time, you don't care. We get this skewed version of reality that's designed to make us react, make us emotional, but not to make us think. We just believe what we read. We believe what we see. Because why would we not? They're the news. Why would they lie to us? Because they want to give you this sick, twisted mind. And the algorithms are literally built that way to keep us engaged, not informed. They want you to get the click rate through. They want you to like the video. It's not off of, especially our attention span as Gen Z is so low that you're not going to sit and watch because you don't care. You just want to see the headline and move on. And the more we rely on social media for our political information, the less we actually know what's really happening and what's really going on. You really got to do your own research. You may ask, so what can we do? Well, the first thing I think you definitely need to do is stop relying on social media as your primary news source. I'm not saying you can't be on TikTok or Instagram. I mean, honestly, I don't have TikTok or Instagram, but I've got YouTube and Twitter, and I enjoy it. But don't let it be the only place for your information. Start reading. Start watching. And here's the most important thing. Check both sides. Do not just check your one perspective. I had to work very hard on doing that with this podcast. Because I want the real news. And typically, the left-wing media is lying to us. So I trust more of the right because they go and they fact check. Like actually fact check. Not Facebook's fact check like saying Donald Trump's not going to be a Nazi person. They fact check that. He's not a Nazi. Don't be stupid. I cannot stress this enough. You need to form your own opinions based on what you believe, not what you're being told. Your parents may believe this one thing. They may be a hardcore Democrat and a Republican. And you may be like, that doesn't sit right with me. This is not an episode for me to say you need to vote right. You need to be a Republican. You need to vote with what actually makes sense to you and what aligns with your policies. I do not believe in abortion. That's killing a life form. You may believe that's okay, but what's your legit reasoning? Not, well, this TikToker said that we need to have our own opinions on our body and we need to believe this because, well, X, Y, and Z. Why though? Why do you believe that? If you've ever only heard one side of the argument, how do you know what's actually true? How do you know? You don't. You're only seeing part of this picture. But how many of us actually know what's actually going on? Are we just knowing it because you've seen what the left is saying or the right is saying? How many of you have looked at both sides, listened to the experts, and formed opinions based on the facts? This goes for everything: taxes, immigration, healthcare, foreign policies. You can't just take someone else's word for it. You hear the one person say it and you go, that's got to be true. That has to be true. You need to go and check all the sides. You need to go find out what's actually going on. Find the facts, weigh in the argument, decide for yourself. My grandma's always said, don't be the person in the conversation who knows nothing about what's being talked about. Let me say that again. Don't be the person in the conversation who knows nothing about what's being talked about. And that's always stuck with me. She's completely right. You don't want to be the person who's sitting in silence because you're clueless on what's going on. Add something to the conversation. Do your own research. You definitely don't want to be the person who's spouting off opinions based on nothing. Well, but I heard Tucker Carlson say this. I like Tucker Carlson. But are you going off of what just he's saying? Or have you watched different people? It's about more than knowing the facts also. It's about having common sense. Are you sitting there going, yeah, that makes sense because they're telling me, or you're like, that doesn't sit right with me? Or do you just not care? Because I want you to care. It's about thinking critically, looking at the world around you and figure out what's actually going on. That's something we're losing. Common sense. I've been saying this for a while. Common sense isn't that common anymore. How many people do you know that think of a common sense and not just, well, that's what they say? If you think that having an abortion is okay because they're not fully developed yet, where's your common sense? That's a life form. The person becomes, that little clump of cells, as the liberals like to say, becomes a human being, becomes a person. You're killing a life. It's literally murder. You wouldn't go and murder someone unless you're literally mentally insane. That's the same thing. Debate me on it. It's the same thing. So we're quick to react and form opinions based on emotion, but we don't always stop to think. You just read the headline. Well, I saw whoever say this, so it's got to be true. Please form your own opinions. Gen Z's got this reputation of being clueless and not having common sense. And we're easily swayed by these trends. But it doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be us. Let's change the narrative. We can choose to be informed and care about the world we live in, to take our political responsibility seriously. I'm almost 16. I get to vote in 2 years. I need to be prepared. You need to be prepared. Don't not vote. That's stupid. You have the freedom to vote, the freedom to base your opinion, to do your own research. Other countries aren't that lucky. We are so lucky. So do it, guys. Don't be the person that's in the middle. If you don't have a clear stance on what you believe in, you have nothing to believe in. You have nothing to take a stand on because you have nothing. Being in the middle means nothing. Well, but I believe this, but I kind of believe this. That's not true. There's a kid I know. He believes in the Bible. He also believes in abortion. He also believes in evolution. If you believe the whole Bible, you can't believe in abortion. You can't believe. If you're a Christian or Lutheran, Catholic, you guys get it. You can't. Being a liberal doesn't make sense because they believe so much that's not in the religion. If you don't, so you cannot pick and choose from both sides. As I said, from a Christian perspective, you can't pick and choose from the Bible. You either believe it or you don't believe it. You need core values. You need substance. Let's make a commitment to ourselves, to our generation, and to our future. Let's get involved, guys. Let's start the conversation, have the debates, and engage with people who think differently. because that's how we grow. That's how we learn. Don't, I think debating is so important. Have those hard conversations with people. Talk with people that you don't agree with. Talk to people you do agree with. Also, learn. Maybe you believe this one thing your whole life, but then you're like, hey, I heard this perspective. Let's research it. Do not just believe it because you heard one or two people talk about it. Guys, let's wake up. Don't be woke. Let's be awake. Be awake to what's going on around you. Learn something. If you take anything from this podcast, this episode, two things. Get common sense and start waking up. Start caring. Why don't you care? What's the real reason you don't care? Think about that for a second. Why aren't you caring about what's going on in the world? What's up with that? Leave a comment. I would love to know. I'd love to talk more about this with a couple guests, learn their perspectives. Let's get involved. Let's stay involved. Let's learn about what's happening in the world right now. Do you know some big things happening right now? Iran just bombed Israel. Do you know that? Do you know that Donald Trump was almost assassinated twice and that no one's talking about it anymore? Do you know that this is a very important election? Do you know that inflation is so high right now it's harder to live? Groceries are costing people more. Everything's costing more. Does that sit right with you? Does that make sense to you? Start caring, guys. Start waking up. Stay informed. Let's stay engaged. That's all I really want to say about this. I want you to start caring. If we don't care, then who's going to care? If we don't start talking to people, who's going to start talking? Think about that. If we don't start talking, who's going to? If we don't start debating, who's going to? Some of it comes down to picking your friends more wisely. Don't just hang out with this one guy because, yeah, he's cool. Who you hang out with is who you will become. Do you want to be like that person? Think about that. Are the people you're with the people you want to be with for the rest of your life? Are they the good influence? Are they going to build you up, make you stronger? Let's wake up, guys. Our generation is the future. We are the next doctors, lawyers, police officers. Some of us next president, maybe. Don't be, this is a hard word, but don't be worthless. Don't be useless. Know something, learn something, have conversations. This is not, you don't just get to breeze by life. Everyone is here on this earth for a purpose. There's something that you're meant to do. What is that? What is it that you can be doing? So, with that being said, thank you for joining me today on this episode of The Clayton Show. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something. I hope that we can continue to start learning and growing. Please continue watching. There's so many episodes I want to get pushed out. I'd love to actually do one on the Reagan movie. It's so important to me. It's so incredibly important to me, that movie. And that's why this episode exists, because I watched that movie and had the conversations with kids. Have the hard conversations. I hope you'll have a great week. This is filmed a week after I watched the movie, so I've had a long time to prepare for this. And I will see you next time, hopefully. Like and subscribe, please. Tell your friends, share it. I'll see you guys next time.